But also, more interestingly for us now, you got married.
It's been a while. I'm a very eccentric person. I don't paint my dreams. I paint my reality in a surreal way. Yeah, so I guess for me, that's what it means.
I told you I was stalking your Twitter.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, first of all, this is not the first time that we're speaking, right? So we've had an interview. You reminded me it was 2015?
Yes, 2015.
It doesn't feel like that long ago.
Really?
No, it doesn't. And at that time you were doing your first exhibition, right? Was that your first one?
Was it? No. It wasn't my first group exhibition. No.
Mm-hmm.
I had taken part in quite a few group exhibitions before.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But that was the first one I had taken part in, I think, when I just got into the arts, like professionally.
Oh, so it got you right at the start of things.
Yes.
And you've been so busy ever since.
Yes.
You've done so much. You've done 2 solos.
2 solos.
Yeah. A couple of things internationally as well.
Yes.
Yeah, you've been really, really busy. But also, more interestingly for us now, you got married.
It's been a while.
But I'm saying this now because you're painting your husband. I need you to tell us about the painting of your husband because I was really intrigued by that.
Okay, so it started when there's someone who actually tried to commission me to say they wanted me to do a portrait of them, but not a conventional one, one that like talks about who they are. And so, I mean, this is a stranger, by the way. I just met them over a few cups of coffee. And we had a short discussion. I asked them a few questions about what they like and whatnot. And so from this little information I got, I managed to do a piece about them.
Right.
And so when my husband saw it, he was like, oh, this is really nice. I like this. Can you do one for me? Like, I'll commission you to do one for me. So
I like that he commissioned you.
Oh, no.
Like you said, this is a business.
It is. There are no freebies here. So he commissioned me and he said, just do put whatever you feel, who you think I am is what you like. Don't restrict yourself. So if there's anything bad, just put it on. If there's anything, just be honest.
Yeah, it feels like a trick. It feels like a little bit of a trick. Can you describe the painting? I know that we'll put it up for people to see, but describe what it's like.
So it's basically a portrait of him in his usual work attire. And then he's seated on a throne, like from Game of Thrones. Yeah, and he has a crown on his head. And on top of the throne, there's the justice symbol. Yeah, and he's holding a fork. There's a plate with an elephant's foot in front of him.
Okay, so stop. First of all, the fork, what's that about?
So he's eating.
Okay.
Yes.
And the elephant?
He's eating the elephant.
You need to explain that.
Okay, that one started, I honestly, I can't share everything about the painting because some things are kind of personal. But, I got the idea first from his former boss tasked him to do something, something that was outside of his comfort zone. And he was very skeptical about embarking on that journey. And he told him to say, okay, maybe ask your wife to draw you taking a bite into an elephant. Like, look at it in this way and like just start eating the elephant. And so, yeah, I did a quick sketch of that. And yeah, it sort of encouraged him to take on that task. And so then it wasn't necessarily, so in the painting, it wasn't necessarily talking about that particular task, but I guess the task of being with me. I'm a very eccentric person. I'm a very eccentric person, and he does a phenomenal job, like just being my partner and being supportive and loving and not trying to take away elements of what makes me who I am. Like, he just allows me to be me in all of my insanity and unorthodox behavior and thought processes. And yeah, I do realize, like, the more time I spend with him, because we've been together for 10 years now.
Wow.
Yeah, like the more time I spend with him, I do realize that it's actually a mammoth task to be with a person and just allow them to be themselves. Yeah.
So the reason why I was really interested in it and why I'm asking you about it is because it's very symbolic, right? It's a portrait, and you call it a portrait.
Yeah.
But when you see it, you see so much more than just your husband. You see so many symbols, and there's a dove as well there. There's so much stuff. And it's very it shows the kind of artist that you are, which is a surrealist.
Yeah.
And you always, in everything that you draw, you always put there, keeping it surreal.
Yeah.
So what does surrealism mean to you? How would you describe it? What kind of art is it?
Okay, so conventionally, it's sort of like depicting images from the subconscious, and it's mostly realistic images juxtaposed against each other, like unrelated realistic images put together in a way that it makes them relate to one another. Yeah. So traditionally, surrealists, they paint their dreams.
Right.
I don't paint my dreams. I paint my reality in a surreal way. Yeah. So I guess for me, that's what it means.
That's really interesting.
Yeah.
Because that's exactly what you did with your husband. Like, it's your reality, but in a surreal way, in the way that you sort of imagine it.
Yeah.
I'm always interested in that because a lot of people, for example, I read and write a lot of fiction, mainly fiction.
Yeah.
And people always say, but you don't learn anything from fiction, and why would you bother, reading fiction, or, like, what's the point of that? And for me, it broadens the imagination so much, right? To be able to imagine something different from just what you're seeing in front of you.
Yeah.
And I remember as a child, I was very, like, I saw a lot of things around me. I had many imaginary friends, or like movies I would watch and I was in the movie, or like making up stories and writing them myself and things like that, right? And so I love the whole idea of playing with your imagination. What kind of child were you? Did you, draw as a child or anything like that?
Yes. I used to do it compulsively. Yeah. I think for the most part, I was a loner as a child, because I used to really love drawing. Like, I would spend the whole day indoors just drawing, and I would literally create worlds on paper.
What kind of things were you drawing?
Random things, like stuff that I just found interesting. I'll draw babies, I'll draw women in dresses that I like, I'll draw nice houses. I was very imaginative, and I used to really get into it. Yeah. So yeah, I was very much.
And did you have a lot of encouragement with that?
Yes, luckily my parents encouraged me from the get-go. So they knew the kind of child I was. I used to draw on the walls, on the tables, so on the work documents. So they said, okay, you know what? She likes to do this, so let's just encourage her. So they would give me paper. Sometimes I would be at my mom's office. She would just give me like a stack of paper and she'd be like, you draw. Because she knew that's what I like to do in my free time. Yeah. So I was very much encouraged. Yeah.
And did you have any like teachers or anything like that? What about at school? Was there any encouragement from that side?
So at school, we used to have art. But we only had it in primary school. Yeah. So I took it up to grade 7.
Yeah.
Yeah. Then secondary school, I didn't take art at school.
It's funny because we just thought of art as something that you're playing. So that's why it's for primary school people, because it's just for people who are just playing.
Yeah, yeah.
And now you teach yourself as well.
Yes.
Has, first of all, the experience that you had in school or as like a kid, has that influenced how you teach kids who are trying to learn how to
I think
draw and paint?
The influence is that I sort of like channel into teaching the children is from the time I spent drawing alone. Looking back at art class, there's nothing profound that I learned there. Yeah, I don't even have any profound memories from my art classes. Like, they were quite boring, very mechanical. It just didn't feel like a place where you could freely express yourself. Yeah, it was very.
And so how does that translate? How do you now decide to teach?
So I decide to teach in a way that is non-rigid, kind of non-conventional as well, because I want the children to not only express themselves, but also have fun while they're doing it. Yeah, because the whole essence of creating is it's a fun thing to do, whether you're writing or you're acting. I mean, it's the fun side is the most important thing. I think it really enhances the creativity. Yeah, so I do it in a way that I don't want them to create like I do. I want them to create as themselves and to express themselves in their own unique way. Yeah, so that's how I do it. Yeah.
Which is a perfect way to do it, because they'll have more fun and then they'll want to do it more and more, right?
Exactly.
And so you went from now nurturing your own drawing to I'm going to become an actual artist. How did that jump happen?
So, like I mentioned earlier, I used to draw like throughout my childhood. Even as a teenager, there was a time I stopped for a couple of years, but then I took it up again, I think when I was about 16, 17. Yeah. And from there, it was just one of those things I used to do. Like, it was a very active hobby. Yeah. And I was on set for, there was this short series that was being shot by Media 365 in 2009, Babrisky Business. Yeah,
I remember that.
Yes. So I had a very, very small role on it. And before shooting began, we had a workshop, like an acting workshop. And the director used to teach us, and, we'll just have conversations around the whole thing. And so I used to carry my sketchbook with me. And so one day he browsed through it, and he asked me to say, okay, what do you want to study?
Who was the director?
Jeff Stally.
Oh, right.
Yes.
You could say Jeff Stally. We know him.
Yes. So yeah, Jeff Stally saw my sketchbook and he browsed through it and he said, why don't you study art? And at that time, I didn't even know that you could go to school for art. Yeah. So he was like, no, there's a really good art school in Namibia. And there's an art school that's opening right here in Zambia. But it's part-time. But if you don't get to Namibia, you can enroll at the Zambia Open. So I was like, oh, okay. And that's how he gave me contact details for one of Zambia's prominent artists, which is Mr. William B. Miko.
Okay. Yes. I know him as well.
Yeah.
Yes.
So he's one of the lecturers at Zambia Open University.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
and now a trustee at Letchway Trust, right?
Yes. Yeah. So I met up with him and he led me to go and join the Visual Arts Center in the showgrounds at Henry Talley Art Gallery. Yeah. And I joined, I met other artists, which was really shocking. I didn't
you didn't know they existed?
No, I didn't know. I didn't know we had the gallery. I didn't know there was an art scene in Zambia, like, you know, with so many artists, so many patrons as well. Yeah. So that's when I decided to say, okay, you know what? I think I'll do this. It's something, because there was a point in time when I didn't know what I wanted to do. I didn't want to do something that I didn't enjoy doing for the rest of my life. Yeah, so I was torn. I didn't know what I wanted to do. So I guess it came at an opportune time, and I was like, oh, you know what? This is like my second nature. So let me. I think this is what I was meant to do. Yeah.
Which brings us nicely to what led us here today was the group exhibition that you're part of right now at the Letchway Trust Gallery. But your main theme is the recreation of Madame.
Yeah.
First of all, maybe tell us what that's about, and then there's a particular picture that depicts that, and maybe you can like describe that for us as well.
Okay. So the recreation of Madame is the context of the subject matter is based off Michelangelo's The Creation of Adam. Right. Yeah. And so with the creation of Adam, it's one of those artworks that people look at and think it's talking about the actual creation of Adam, like God creating Adam from dust. But it's got a deeper meaning. It actually depicts Adam sort of like getting in touch with the God within him, because that God figure in the painting is actually in something that looks like a brain. Yeah.
So what you're saying is that it's basically Adam becoming Adam through his interaction with God. Is that what you're saying?
So it's him actually getting in touch with the God within him.
Right.
Yes. Okay. Yes. Subconsciously.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so that's what your creation is as well, or?
So mine is it's basically just talking about how in life we wear different masks throughout our journey, and each mask is who we are at that point in time. Yeah, it's not like a persona or anything. It's just who you are at that particular
like you're not being
point.
fake.
Yes, you're not being fake. That's just who you are, and it's really about also embracing the process of taking on these masks, utilizing them, and letting go of them when the time comes, so you can give birth to a new you. Yeah, and most times, especially I think as we grow older, I think there comes a time when people want to hold on to past versions of themselves that, that person doesn't exist anymore. You want to do things the way you were doing them 10 years ago, and you think, oh, that version of me was really cool, but it doesn't work. Like, you try, but it doesn't work.
Yeah.
So
it's like a disconnect now. Yeah.
Great disconnect. And so in order for you to actually just move forward and evolve and be in tune with who you are right now, you have to accept and take on the new person, get to know them like from scratch, and embrace whoever that person is. And just enjoy the moment in that journey.
So, art, we know that art is about interpretation as well. And when I saw it, I sort of interpreted it as your many faces. You're recreating yourself over the years with your career. And, so you went from, like you said, starting out, not really knowing there's an art scene, doing exhibitions, to doing now stuff with brands, which is very exciting. And you had the gin bottle that you did.
Yeah.
Maybe if we talk about just that, how did that come about? How does it work with you and working with brands?
They looked me up online and they really loved the work. And so they got in touch with me. And at the time, I was just getting into gin.
Getting into gin. We won't go there.
So it was really exciting. So when the opportunity came, I was really excited. I was like, oh, this is really, it's huge, and I love gin.
Who doesn't?
Yeah. So it worked really well, and so they gave me artistic freedom. Like,
what was the creative process like?
So they told me first of all that story of how they set up and the kind of vibe they were going for, like, because they are originally from Switzerland. Yeah. So they wanted to bring the craftsmanship of the Swiss craftsmanship, and so like marrying it with the essence of Zambia. Yeah, like how do you bring those two things together and make them work? Yeah, because even the fruits that they use for the gin are indigenous fruits. So that was part of the discussion. They wanted that to come out in the portrait. Like, it should be a Zambian face, just depicting our national colors.
And so apart from the brand, and I know you've worked with a few other brands since then, had interesting collaboration with golfer as well.
Oh, yes, yes.
And so you've done a lot with that. But now, like, jumping to now, like a new recreation, I've seen that you're trying out new forms of art, different ways of mixing material, even performance art.
I've done a lot of stage performance. Yeah, a lot of stage performance, a bit of screen, but my time was mostly on stage. Yeah, so it's one of those things that I thought, okay, maybe in the future I could get into performance, but it wasn't.
Has your art fed into your performance? Would you say that it's different now that you've been creating in this other way?
Yes, definitely. I have this thing where I have paintings that are in my head.
Yeah.
Like concepts.
Don't worry, I understand.
So there's this one particular painting that I really wanted to recreate. It was going to be, I have not recreated it yet, but it was going to be based off Henry Magritte, and there's this one work that I like. It's called The Lovers. So it's two people kissing, but they have like sheets draped around their faces.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So I liked that concept, and I was going to recreate it in a way that married into, you know, how human interactions and relations sort of changed during the time of COVID. Yeah, like the no contact. So I was playing around that, but I was, you know, I still hadn't like come up with a firm concept. Oh, because the theme actually was art and technology,
right?
Like how they sort of like interact with one another. Yeah, and so the work was basically a depiction of lovers. So it's basically these two people who meet and they hit it off like via their phones, and so they eventually meet in person and they vibe at first.
At first.
And then suddenly they just don't. Like,
so like, was it real? Wasn't it real?
Like they just completely, like there's this disconnect that happened, and they sort of were not in tune anymore. And so eventually they sort of like work through that turmoil of being disconnected. And then the performance ends with them coming back together, but using their phones like to connect.
So they can't connect if they're not using their phones.
Yes, like so they can't connect physically, like face to face.
Yeah. So the mask is the phone.
Yes. Yeah. So it was a dance performance. I love dance. I love dancing. Unfortunately, at the time, I was pregnant.
Right.
Yeah. So it was very. It was a labored performance.
A labored performance. That didn't take you to labor, I hope.
No. But it was really nice because I worked with a dancer that I had met along the way. Like he's a body contortionist. Yeah, so I basically choreographed the thing, and I also had to like produce a song for it.
Oh wow!
So I went in. There's a producer, music producer. He's called McKnight. Yeah, I love how he makes his music. Like, you know, he's very unconventional. I like working with unconventional people.
They do the best stuff.
Yeah. So I got into studio with him, and I basically, because I'm not a sound engineer. Yeah. So I basically I put together some organic sounds that I made like on my phone, and I told him to play certain keys in a certain way, and we just put the thing together from scratch.
Amazing.
And it was fun because we had to so me and the dancer, his name is Fusion, by the way. You can find him on Instagram. We created the routine first, and then I went to the studio, and then we had to create the music according to our movement.
Wow.
Yeah. So it was like it's like a 13-minute song. So it changes like according to the mood of the performance and what we're doing. So it was a very fun experience.
Have you ever performed it again, or that was the only time?
That was the only time, but it's something that I would like to perform like on set, and you know, just record it, and yeah.
I think we need a reprieve, and I think we need you doing more of this stuff.
Yeah.
So, because I can tell you light up when you're talking about that. So you clearly like that mixing of the different art forms and stuff.
Yes,
I'm
me too.
really excited to see what you come up with next. But just to end, do you have one book, poem, film, image, pick whatever, something that is like either epitomizes your artistic expression or that says something that you think says something about, art.
I think the one book that I would say, okay, it doesn't really epitomize my art, but just my creativity. And that's Harry Potter, like the Harry Potter series.
Why Harry Potter?
I love J.K. Rowling's style of writing, and I just love how she put the story together, the twists, the turns, the build up to the finale, and it's for me, it's one of actually it's my favorite book series.
Wow.
I don't know how many times I've read it, but it's one of those that it really, for me, it's very mind stimulating because I'm not much of a reader, but I think the only thing I read is fiction. Yeah.
That's the only thing to read.
Yes, because like you said earlier, it really it enhances your creativity. Yeah. So for me, that's the one thing that when I read, and it just sort of stimulates my mind.
I love that we've come full circle because we're talking about surrealism and fantasy.
Yeah.
So if people want their kids to get into art, give them Harry Potter.
Give them fantasy, movies, books. It's such a wonderful genre. Yeah.